This is the Rich Lieberman Bay Area Media Pulse. Boy, do I have a good one for you on this last broadcast for now on Friday before the big Labor Day holiday push. So let me talk to you about something that is unique, probably not very enjoyable, just to add to all the goo taking place at the Bay Area ABC0 KGO television, not so darling Disney operation there on the Embarcadero. And look, this has been brewing for some time now, that there are some key people who work over there who are now basically in control, not officially, because that would be make it even worse. And actually now it's even worse than it's really been. There's been and has been and is, present tense, a really bad atmosphere taking place at KGO Television, better known as ABC7, the so-called Building a Better Bay Area crew, who can't even build a better newscast, let alone a Bay Area. There's a lot of tension taking place. And I've been, working on this story for many moons now. I've just had some other things hit, as those of you who watch me have been seeing some of the things taking place with regards to Channel 2, KPIX, personnel there. But let's cut to the chase here. So have been mentioning all along about Dion Lim's status at KGO Television. She's out, pretty much. She might fill in and fulfill some kind of contractual situation, but she's as good as gone. And they can ballyhoo all they want, they being KGO, about we got the Chinese New Year's parade. That's not until February of next year. And already they're starting to advertise it and promo it. Fine. You got the wonderful Kristen Z, better known as Ming Z, as she's derisively called her Asian name, her Cantonese name, by people at KGO who are not entirely happy with her. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. So they have that. They wrestled that from Channel 2, which I guess didn't want to bid on it, has football to deal with, and has lost many of its people over at KTVU. So now KGO has this, an event that won't happen until February, and they're already promoting it. So, but we're not going to talk about that now. So what is going on, folks, at Channel 7? Well, on Thursday, I mentioned this briefly the other day. The general manager, Tom Zaprowski, that's his name, comes from Good Morning America, has been with ABC for years as a management official. He's a general manager. Supposedly he's a nice guy, not the heavy-duty burden kind of a guy, asshole kind of a boss that a lot of people experience, not just in television news, across any sort of industry. So in any event, he bursts out of his office, goes into the news director's office, and lots and lots of screaming and yelling. Why? Maybe Zabrowski was kind of pissed off about a fact that his newsroom, I'm not talking about the writers, the news people behind the scenes, but which might be another story in and of itself, but a staff in disarray, a staff that, from a power standpoint, is annoyed and, quite frankly, dismayed at the fact that 3 or 4 people, 2 very prominent, are running Channel 7 now. Channel 7, the big ABC Disney owned and operated station. First and foremost, Kristen Z has never liked Dion Lim. Talk about a feud. Well, there's a feud there. Was that amongst one of the reasons why Dion Lim wants out of KGO? You better believe it. And there's other reasons. I'll get to that in a second. Kristen Z is in her 50s. Did she look at Dion Lim as a threat? You better believe it. Let's bring somebody else into this power play. Guy by the name of Julian Glover, who they got from Cleveland. He, shall we say, just fits all the boxes. He's their person who looks at all the people, all their various, what's the word? Orientations, gender, race. And there's a little mini side drama to this. Julian Glover is not a fan of Dion Lim. He perceived her as somebody who was labeling something having to do with the Black community and the Asian community. Now, I don't have time to go into the details. Suffice to say, Julian Glover didn't care for Dion Lim. Julian Glover apparently holds a lot of the purse strings at 900 Front. You may see Julian Glover a lot. He's an anchor guy. He's aligned with Kristen Z, who doesn't necessarily think he's such a wonderful dude, but ever heard of this phrase, folks? I think you have. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay. That's what you have with Kristen Z with regards to her relationship with Julian Glover and Dion Lim. Now, Dion Lim leaving, and it could be any day now officially, but it's basically a done deal. And she's going to be probably working not at Channel 5, but at the CBS 24/7 streaming outlet, which is gaining very huge prominence. That decision probably comes a few weeks, maybe a month. But I'm hearing that Dion Lim aced her audition on Thursday and did very, very well. And she's as good as gone from Channel 7. And Kristen Z and Julian Glover, not exactly allies, but are united in this. They're not into and they're not big Dion Lim fans. Combine this, folks, with the fact that you have a news director who does not know how to run a newsroom, who plays favorites herself, which is why a whole lot of people, even the big suits, are fed up with her. Maybe Zabrowski, one of them. That may have been the reason why he stormed into the office of Tracy Watkowski, or better known as Trixie, amongst all of her friends and sometimes not so friendly friends. Trixie doesn't know how to run a newsroom. Trixie is very polarizing. She has her favorites and her non-favorites. All of this, folks, has created a toxic environment. It's always been kind of toxic at Channel 7. Combine all of that sideshow to what's happening with Disney and layoffs and the fact that they sometimes don't have enough people to do a newscast. I'm not talking on the air. I'm talking the people who do all the heavy lifting behind the scenes, because all of this upheaval, all of this turbulence, all of this negativity, combined with all of the side stuff with Glover, who, believe me, is not very much loved at Channel 7. He's got a lot of issues. Same thing with Kristen Z. Same thing with others. And who are, let's say, Dan Ashley, Amadeus, Larry Beal. I guess they all just kind of put up with this and look the other way. Maybe they feel powerless. Maybe they are powerless. I know Ashley, I've been told, sort of wants to keep out of this stuff. That he's generally liked, he's respected over there. Been there over 30 years. I hope he's respected. In any event, He wants to stay out of this. And he just wants to go into the studio, do his show, do his newscast, and not get involved with all this, even though he's cozy, close to Kristen Z. You can imagine what's taking place when the lights aren't on, when the camera is not on, all the little negotiations and this, that, and the other. Believe me, folks, and the staff at KGO-TV, they know what I'm talking about. Most of them do. They understand what I'm describing right now. I can only imagine what it's like to work there with all of this taking place and some of their key people that they still continue not to put on a salaried position. They treat these people garbage. This is the real Disney, which owns ABC, which owns KGO, some of their they're owned and operated stations. I understand pretty much every industry has their degree of tension and stress and volatility, all that stuff. It's part of life, especially when you're talking about a newsroom operation in a number 5, top 10 market like KGO. But the product itself stinks. I've derided them is the proper word, called them zombies, because they just go there. There's no passion. There's no interest. There's no, shall we say, chivalry. And that's on the news director's watch. A good leader, a good person in management, a news director would say, folks, we got to get our act together. Staff, we're a team. It's bullshit. Of course it is. But you have to do that. You have to have these kind of meetings to, shall we say, wipe away the disarray. It rhymes. How poignant with symmetry. You've got a really, really bad situation taking place at Channel 7, one of the most heralded stations in the Bay Area. How many times have I talked about legacy stations and heralded stations, the birthplace of some of the greatest TV anchors, KGO. And now we have all this. And this has been ongoing for months now. This Glover guy is trouble. Nobody trusts him. He's a shill. He's a stooge. He's derided also as being a snitch. So they're building up all these sort of relationships. And the news director is absent. Perhaps Tom Zabrowski, who is the general manager, we think, whose job, I would guess, I would hope, is to make sure that there's fluidity and there is symmetry. And they are having a team effort, but they are not. They're not. Channel 7 is in complete disarray. I know, I've heard, haven't spoke to in a long time. They have key people there, people that do all the dirty work, that get the newscast on the air, that rev up the engine. Haven't heard from them in a while. And that tells me there's more trouble. There's more disarray. There's more issues. And this Glover guy is out of control. Those are not my words. Those come from two heavy hitters over there behind the scenes who know where all the bodies are buried, so to speak. So KGO has an issue. Meanwhile, the key people in front of the camera that you enjoy watching, people like Leanne Melendez, people like, oh my goodness, she's disgusted. Look what happened with Michael Finney, who basically was let go. Nobody's even said anything. Michael Finney, the consumer anchor, been there for 34 years, just disappears. I gave you the reason why. They didn't want to pay him. And he thought he had a cushy job. He thought he was still on their radar. Disney, nope. So, but that's yesterday's news. KGO has issues. They have a lot of key people who are, shall we say, in front of a microscope. Unfortunately, it's out of control. It's out of whack. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. You're certainly not going to read about it in the Chronicle, because the Chronicle, folks, they don't cover media like I do. Wait a minute, folks. They don't cover media at all. Nobody does in the Bay Area like me. So keep this in mind. You're getting this from basically the horse's mouth. Only in this case, that's not the kind of deal that is very welcome at KGO right now. The general manager knows about it. Fed up. The news director, who knows? She couldn't lead, hell, a stripper to a wedding party, to a bachelor party. No control. Yet she continues to keep her job, all the while enjoying signaling all her little friends what to do, cozies up to people, and ignores people who can't stand her. It's not a very, shall we say, fluid situation. And yes, folks, not a pretty picture either. I'm glad you know now what is happening at Channel 7, because you listened to Rich Lieberman. I hope you have a great, fantastic Labor Day weekend, whatever you're doing. Remember, subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. I'm here virtually every day, sometimes away, sometimes not. And of course, if you can, folks, please make a contribution so that I can continue to give you all the news and scoops and information that you're not going to get literally, figuratively anywhere else. Please donate, and I will personally thank you. See you later.